Hi guys, David Michael here. We're in a three-part video. I wanted to show you Sambucus. This is black elderberry. I wanted to show it to you. If you look, any of you are familiar with burning bush, the color of the leaf axil resembles burning bush. It's a compound leaf. These stalks are really fragile and pithy. Dead stalks will be hollow inside because that pith rots away pretty fast. The flower right here resembles a lot of different things, from cow parsnips to water hemlock to poison hemlock to Queen Anne's lace, but it is a wetland shrub. The old timers used to tell me when I was a kid that there's water within 15 feet if you see one of these underground. A lot of people eat these flowers. They fry them and eat them. They don't eat them raw. I personally don't, because when I did taste them and tried them in my 20s, it wasn't that significant. But I'm doing this video to show you the flower, to show you what's going to turn into a berry drupal. And they're going to turn a deep, deep purple, almost black from a distance. And they're tiny. They're the size of the plastic pin heads that you see in your grandma's pin cushion. It's kind of easy to identify once you get used to it with the flowers. So look for the flowers when you're hunting this, and get out and look at it and make sure that it's this compound leaf. Make sure the stem has some warts on it, no thorns. Make sure you're in a wetland type area, and then come back when the berries are on in September, which we're going to do with this video, and we're going to harvest the berries, which are poisonous raw, but absolutely wonderful immune builder in the fall. So I'm going to show you here in a few minutes in September, time-lapsed, how wonderful these berries are, how I harvest them, what I do with them, and the best way to use them as far as the way I've used them in my life goes. Go ahead. Dawn and I were watching these elderberry bushes for the last couple of weeks, waiting for them to ripen. Generally, you got to stay on it. In a year like this, when there's a drought, you really have to stay on it. Half of the bush started to ripen up, and you can see where the other half of the bush isn't ripened. But if you notice on this drupal, most of these berries are gone. And the reason is we had a storm 2 days ago that took most of the berries. So if you're watching your elderberries and getting ready to harvest, try to do it before you get a big storm. If it's ripe, go ahead and go get your drupals. Luckily, we have several more places that we're going to harvest elderberries. These drupals are usually heavy and laden and just full of ripe berries. And I use a knife, or I'll use hedge trimmers, and I just cut the drupal right here. And usually, like I said, this is just going to be really full. But we're going to harvest some elderberries in an area, I think, that hasn't had a big storm, so it won't be a problem. There's a lot of medicinal benefits to this, and because of it, I'm going to take these home when we do find berries that are worthy of harvesting, and show you guys what I do with it, how I make my preventative medicines and my cough syrups from the elderberry. The raw berries are poisonous, and so I will show you guys what we do once I get some harvested. I just wanted to show you this plant and show you just how barren it is because of the storm. This drupal here really just shook all the berries off of it. Heavy winds and rain will do it when they ripen. So I will see you guys in the next video when I show you how I take harvested elderberry and what I do with it, its medicinal benefits, aside from just jelly. I'll show you what I do to add to my annual diet. black elderberry. See ya in the next video, guys. Safe foraging. For quite a while, when I was raising my girls, my young girls, I was always frustrated with the use of these elderberries, turning them into jellies and cough syrups, and the cough syrup batches were so big and then I wouldn't use much. So in my mind I was wasting elderberries. So I came up with a plan and I tried it and it works pretty good. So what I'm going to show you guys is how to make elderberry pancake syrup, so that you have syrup for your little ones and yourself for your waffles and your pancakes, and it's healthy and it has no processed sugars in it, and your whole batch of elderberries can go into that without any issues. And then when you need cough syrup, I'm going to show you how to turn your elderberry pancake syrup into a home remedy cough syrup and cold medicine. Right now I wanted to show you how we do these drupals. Now this is a little different than some people do it. We harvest the drupals. A lot of times you're going to have a drupal with green berries on it. It almost can't be helped. A lot of times half of the plant, the elderberry bush, will have really perfectly ripe elderberries and the other half won't, and then you'll run into plants that have really ripe berries on them with green berries in the middle. That's not something you really need to worry about. You do not want green berries, but I'm going to show you how to separate those. And this is what I do different than most people. A lot of people will take these and they'll mash the juice in a big colander to get it off the stems. I've seen people start to cook them this way, and then I've seen people do it the way that I am doing it. I take my fingers, my thumb and my index finger, and I'm not pinching. I'm just kind of rolling the berries off. The green ones like to stay on the bracket, so you're not going to get a lot of green berries in there, but the ones that you do not want. So I'm going to show you real quick how to do that, and then we'll get to making the syrup, and then I'll get to explaining how we take pancake syrup. The whole batch of elderberries goes into pancake syrup or jelly or both, and how we turn that into cough medicine when we need it, rather than having a gallon of cough medicine on the shelf. I'd rather have a couple of gallons of pancake syrup on the shelf and turn that into a cold remedy and cough syrup when I need it. So none of the elderberries go to waste that way. Alright, so this is one way I discovered that you can separate the green berries from the other berries. This is the trick I use. You can see there's green berries in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of these berries in the water. Now you don't want these berries in the water for very long, so you put about half of that in there and let it settle a minute. And the berries that aren't ripe float. So we just take those berries out with a scoop like that. And as soon as I get all them cleaned off, I'm going to use them for something else. I'm not going to throw them away. I'm not going to do a video on what I do with these green berries, but I am going to show you how I do it. Anyway, you want to separate all this, and once you get it separated, I will show you what to do with this skillet. So I will see you guys in about 5 minutes. Okay, I put the berries in a pot after I separated the green berries from the ripe berries, which, by the way, the water trick I showed you, don't be discouraged if a few green berries sink. It's not that big of a deal. I get as many green berries out as I can, but you'll take forever if you try to pick them out by hand. So the water trick works for about 99% of it. It gets rid of the mummies, a lot of the red berries that are going to end up mummies, and most of the green berries. And then as I put it in a pot, if I see green berries, I pick them out, and I really don't worry about it. What I did was I put the berries in the pot, and I added 1/4 cup of water, and I simmered them. You got to be really careful with the heat. I simmered them for about 20 minutes, and then I took a potato masher and I kind of mashed them as I stirred the berries, and mashed them and stirred the berries. Everything was really gentle. I didn't let it come to a boil, and that's kind of important. And then I poured that through a strainer, and after I poured it through a strainer, I added cheesecloth to a second strainer and poured that through the cheesecloth. So this has been strained twice, and this is what we're left with, which is pure elderberry juice. Now, to make elderberry jelly, there's a little bit of pectin in this. We're not going to add pectin, and I don't like processed sugars. So, and I'm a dump cook, which you cannot be if you're going to make jelly. You have to do things precise if you're going to make jelly, which is why I begrudgingly make jelly when I do, because I have to be precise. But to make this syrup without processed sugars, I use 3 parts juice for 1 part of honey. And I'll bring this to a simmer and stir it really slowly for 25 to 30 minutes. And when I let it cool, the little bit of pectin that's in here is going to help to thicken, or at least I'm guessing that's what happens. I can only guess. I just know that I do this with blueberries and elderberries, and it makes excellent pancake syrup. The raw elderberries are poisonous, which I may or may not have mentioned. Now I'm just going to simmer this real slow for about 20 to 25 minutes and let it cool. Now you can pour this into jelly jars and freeze them, or you can pour it hot into jelly jars and add hot paraffin, which I found that if I add paraffin to a cool jar, it doesn't work so well. So when I do paraffin, and it's not very often, especially for syrup, I like to put my syrup in a jar that's hard to find, and it's a really tall jar. It's not a quart. I forget what they call it. I'll have to show you the jar. But anyway, we're going to make this into syrup, and then we can enjoy pancakes and waffles or whatever you like to put your elderberry syrup on. It has absolutely no sugar in it. And whenever someone might need a cough medicine or a cold remedy, you can take this syrup and you can add other ingredients and make that medicine, which when this syrup is done, I'm going to explain what those ingredients are and how we make that cough syrup, which is an immune builder, a good immune builder. And another thing that I recommend doing is saving some of your elderberries and putting them in your dehydrator. Loose berries, ripe loose berries. Now they make a sheet that will keep these tiny berries from falling through in your dehydrator. I don't recommend trying wax paper or anything like that because it could catch fire, especially in some of these lower end dehydrators. But dehydrate your berries, and you can make a decoction from the berries or a daily tea from the berries. You use 2 tablespoons of dried berries if you're going to make a decoction or a homemade cough remedy or cold remedy. And if you want to add it to your teas, you can use a 1/2 teaspoon of berries for your teas. The berries are toxic or mildly toxic when they're raw. I ate them raw as a child, so I really don't know what a lethal dose would be. I'm not even sure there would be a lethal dose of ripe berries. there probably would be a lethal dose of red berries or unripe berries. But as a kid, I nibbled on them and munched on them raw, and I don't know what the lethal dose would be. I never knew the effects. It wasn't until I was a teenager that some old farmer told me, hey, you can't eat those. And I was like, well, I've been eating them for a few years. Then I did some research and found out that indeed it was toxic. Luckily, I'd only eaten a couple of handfuls at a time. But I'll be right back with the finished product of this. Hopefully, this concept of mine will help you with your little ones and having pancake and waffle syrup in the house, and as fast as you can make it, a good cold remedy and a good cough syrup. See you in a few minutes. Now that we've infused the honey into the berry juice for 20 minutes, the final step to thicken this is to add arrowroot powder. And the ratio for arrowroot powder is for every 4 cups of juice, you use a 1/4 cup of arrowroot powder. Now you can find arrowroot powder at a lot of places. You can find it online, order it through Amazon. You can buy it at Walmart, I think. But the organic stuff you'll have to order online. And what I do is I take some of the juice and I add the arrowroot powder just like you would cornstarch when you're making a pie. Or anytime you add cornstarch to something, you usually put it in a small amount of the liquid and get rid of the lumps, and then add it to the mixture. So this is the final stage to thicken it up. And the key thing is not bringing this to a boil or a rolling boil, because we're trying to save the antioxidants in this and the medicinal value of the elderberry syrup or elderberry juice, so that we can utilize its medicinal value and still benefit from it being a syrup, and to use the syrup as a fast means to make a quick cold cure. So I'm going to add this and stir it until it begins to thicken, and then we should, I have 8 cups, by the way, of juice, so I used a 1/2 cup of arrowroot powder. Now normally when I'm messing with berry juices, I wear all white. So I'm hoping in about 20 minutes this will be heated up and thickened. And when you're making your syrup, you'll have to kind of play with your batches to get the syrup to its consistency. Personally, I don't like really thick berry syrup, but I don't like it to run through my pancakes either. Also, you can take a teaspoon of this a day because it has no processed sugars in it. Honey is the only sweetener added. You can take a teaspoon of this a day and benefit from its medicinal immune values. So I'll show you the end product shortly. I stirred in the arrowroot powder and brought it to a simmer for about 20 minutes and rendered this much syrup, and then I happened to find some pancakes just lying around. So I figured I would at least try my syrup. You see the syrup's still hot. Now there was a company, a pharmaceutical company, that manufactured an over-the-counter cold remedy that has a lot of scientific data behind it, and its main ingredient is Sambucus and or elderberry. So the antioxidant values that are in it, we tried to save as much as we could by not bringing it to a rolling boil. And then the cold remedy from this syrup, which I put in jars, you can freeze or you can can them hot. It stores really well. The honey in there helps preserve it. Um, if you wanted to make a cold remedy from this, what I would do is take about a quarter of a cup of this and set it aside. And then I would take a quarter of a cup of water and a tablespoon of chopped fresh onion and simmer it in that quarter cup of water until the water turns brown. Strain, add that onion juice to the syrup. You can also add turmeric, ginger, anything else you want. I just use the onions, the honey, and the syrup to make a cough remedy. And you would think that the onion would kind of ruin it, but it doesn't. It makes it a cough medicine that's easy to go down for kids. And the syrup is absolutely wonderful. So now you can enjoy your elderberry syrup without having to waste all of your elderberries and cough syrup. So you can make syrup and then store it, and when you need the cough syrup, you have it. So there it is, guys. Tweak your recipe the way you like it. Do some research. Happy, safe foraging. I'm a good cook.